What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Processing Blue, where, yes, we process blue for you. I'm Alex Zietlow alongside Mike Kaye, and we cover the Carolina Panthers for the Charlotte Observer. Mike, it's free agency time. Texts are flying. League sources are doing whatever they do, whoever they are. And the Panthers are making some massive strides in free agency, at least at the beginning. They spent a ton of money. After Monday, they were third in spending behind the Titans and Raiders, which I thought was interesting. We're going to talk about all of that. But first, Mike, how you feeling? You ready to go? Let's do this.
I'm doing well. Tired. I think it was like 7:35 or like 7:36 last night. I vocally said to myself, "Man, I really could use a power nap or something to that effect." And I looked down at, and I was like, "Yeah, that might be a good idea." And I looked down, and it was 7:35 or 7:36, whatever it was. Monday was a long day. Tuesday is probably going to have a little bit more action. They've done some minor things, but overall, I think I'm in good shape. Let's keep, pushing it forward.
Yeah. Dan Morgan's in good shape too. He's had a really great Monday. I was thinking that we could do it this way, Mike. Let's go through player by player that the Panthers have acquired, and we'll have a brief discussion about them. And then to punctuate each discussion, we'll give it a grade, quote unquote, of love it, like it, or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll be probably the easiest way to do that. And then after that, we can discuss some of the departures if we have time as well. With that, let's start with Jaelan Phillips. He was the guy that within the hour the Panthers acquired from the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a really splashy move. It addressed an important need. Mike, what are your immediate thoughts on Jaelan?
Darn, that's a huge contract. So he got 4 years, 120 million, 80 million in guaranteed. So he's basically guaranteed 3 of those 4 years, or at least, two full years and part of a third year. It's notable because he has had a 5-year career, never been over 10 sacks, and has 2 notable lower body injuries to contend with. He tore his Achilles in 2023 and tore his ACL in his right knee in 2024. He played a full season last year for the Eagles. Was actually going to be one of those few guys that plays 18 regular season games because he was traded from Miami, where he played 9 games, to Philadelphia, where he played 8 regular season games, but they sat him, I believe, the final game of the season, or he would have ended up playing 18 without a bye week before the playoffs. He did end up playing 18 games. Obviously, the Eagles went to the playoffs as the NFC East champions. He wasn't super on my radar just because of that injury history. I was a tad surprised he was their target. I brought up Joseph Osai several times. I believe Joseph Osai got a reported 3-year, $36 million deal from the Jets. That's actually kind of the pool that I thought the Panthers would be swimming in, but they knocked the roof off the market. They paid him $30 million APY, and look, they got the guy that they wanted. I think financially this is a massive risk, especially with $80 million guaranteed. That said, I can't think of a more scheme-satisfying edge rusher on the market. There were guys you could trade for, but then you're giving up picks and money. But from a pure free agent standpoint, Jaelan Phillips was traded from Miami to Philadelphia because of Vic Fangio and the stuff he did with Vic Fangio in 2023 before he tore his Achilles. He was a standout. He had 6.5 sacks, I believe, in 8 games. And then they brought him to Philadelphia, and he was this all-around ball player. They loved him. I know he only had 2 sacks in 8 games, but he was a guy that constantly created pressure. According to Pro Football Focus, last year he had 73 combined pressures between Miami and Philadelphia. He's a guy that fits exactly what Ejiro Evero wants in an outside linebacker. I brought it up several times. Think about how many times DJ Wonnum and Nick Scordon were asked to drop in coverage. Think about how many times Pat Jones and Nick Scordon were asked to move inside. Jaelan Phillips can do all that. He's also a pretty good edge setter. He's kind of inconsistent against the run, but I think he got better last year against the run in a lot of ways. Not the best tackler. He is kind of a svelte pass rusher, but he's got a nastiness to him. He's got that dog to him. And I think, yeah, the sack numbers aren't pretty, but the pressures are nice. And pressures can create other things for other people. Other guys benefit from that pressure. They can create sacks and interceptions and force fumbles. And so I think he's the type of do everything, Swiss Army knife edge rusher that Evero is coveted because he's seen how it's worked in Vic Fangio's system, and a system that he has dedicated himself to in the NFL.
I hear your overpaying arguments, and in fact, that was probably the leading point of discourse about the whole Jaelan Phillips thing when the news came out. I mean, you look at over the cap, and we're recording this on Tuesday. He is now the eighth highest. He now has the eighth highest per year salary among pass rushers in the NFL, just behind Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, and Myles Garrett, and just ahead of Josh Hines-Allen, who's at $28.25 million per year, and also coincidentally just ahead of Brian Burns too, which is interesting. Although Brian has a higher total value because he got a longer term deal, but whatever. I can see that. But if you're going to sign him to 4 years, and if you have an evaluation of him being a top 5 edge rusher, yes, it's a risk, but it still makes sense to me, particularly when just these contracts get more and more inflated every year.
Sure.
You got to pay people in order to be competitive in markets like this. So I didn't have as big of an issue with the overpay as perhaps others did. The thing that I was really kind of interested in, and you touched on this, was so after the news came out, also comes out with his sack number wasn't very high, 5 sacks, and initially you go and you kind of do a deep dive into the premium stats, whether that be on Pro Football Focus or various NFL people who study film and who have all these interesting metrics like total true pressures, high quality pressures, whatever the case may be. And he averages a pressure every 5.7 snaps. And that's great. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, he also, like you said, doesn't have a great tackling grade. He also has the 25th best defensive grade among all pass rushers in Pro Football Focus. So I think if you look at the premium stats, he's a bit more mixed than maybe what I was just seeing on my Twitter timeline and what I was reading yesterday. It's interesting. I mean, when I watched him, he passed the eye test. Against Carolina, he hit Bryce Young quite a bit. He even got a sack against them. I also just randomly was watching him against Buffalo, and he had a really good game against them too. Was causing Josh Allen a whole bunch of issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think the risk isn't in the overpay. I think the risk is in extrapolating his potential based on these stats that aren't sacks. Does that make any sense to you?
So I think he's had quite a few defensive coordinators, but he's also had to recover from injury as well. So it's if he can get into a safe space, he knows the defense. He knows probably most of the language. He should be fine from a schematic standpoint. I think it's a matter of settling in and, like you said, reaching that potential. It's good that he had a full season of play last year. Excuse me. He was a game wrecker in Philly, and you can wreck a game in more than just sacks, pass breakups, pressures, pressures that become sacks, pressures that become interceptions. I think the risk is in the injury history. I don't love it. From the standpoint of his durability, I think people have brought up the Brian Burns thing. Brian Burns and Jaelan Phillips are completely different planets of players. Brian Burns is a phenomenal edge rusher. He is great at rushing the pass rusher, or he's great at rushing the passer.
Right.
Jaelan Phillips is more of a do-it-all kind of 5-tool player where he's pretty good at a lot of things. He's probably not great at any one thing. And I think that's the type of edge rusher you want in this system. We've seen that with Scorton too. Scorton's not known as a dynamic pass rusher. He's got some great moves. He's technically sound. He's very smart. He plays the run extremely well. You can move him in space. He's very instinctual. I think that's kind of the mold of what they wanted. And, he had really good tape last year. Like I remember rewatching a couple of Eagles games last year because I had friends who were from Philly who were like, hey, what do you think of this guy? And he can be a special player. Like I remember the game against, I think it was like the Lions. He just like blew up almost half the plays. And so for me, this move is one of those kind of, it should be exciting for the fan base. It should be exciting for the organization. It's a lot. I think when you look at Burns too, if you're going to look at the contract, you also have to look at, it's been 2 years since he signed that deal. And so obviously there's, a market setting constantly. You see Max Crosby get traded for 2 first-round picks right after he signs an extension. Like there's a lot to play there, and probably we could talk about it in an entire podcast. That said, I do appreciate their aggressiveness. Like we've mentioned Julian Council's podcast, Locked on Panthers, and a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I don't know what you think they can do, like if they're just going to look at that mid-tier market. And honestly, I think this should be surprising for a lot of people. Like I've talked to a lot of people around that organization, outside of that organization, and even the Eagles organization. And everything I heard was that Jaelan Phillips and the Eagles wanted to reunite. And so for them to blow the door off the place, like you said, you kind of have to overpay to get your guy. And if this was the guy, I think Albert Breer reported he was viewed as their number one fella. Like you're going to pay top dollar, and the contract will either look a little bit better in 2 years or it'll look worse. And I mean, I think Dan Morgan's earned a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, especially after last year's draft class. You just hope this isn't a much higher paid Turk Warden season. And that's really what I think people will be skeptical because of the lack of sacks coming in. I think they'll be skeptical because of the injury history. But I'm just telling you, as a team that wants to increase their pressure rate, just as a whole, a guy that can create a lot of pressures, which then in turn create other mistakes for the quarterback, is an extremely valuable asset. I also think you'll get to see him out in space. You'll get to see him move around the formation. That's something they very clearly wanted to do. He can be their main guy. I don't think he is a top 10 pass rusher. I will say that. I don't think he's a top 8 pass rusher. But if he can be a top 15 guy, I think that's a step in the right direction. They still have more work to do at that edge rusher position. They still have more work to do in the front seven. I like it.
I think he can grow into a top 8 guy. I'm going to go, I love it. He's 27 years old.
He's 26. He doesn't turn 27 until later this summer. But to your point.
Okay, well, then I must have misread it on overthecap.com.
Oh, well, Over the Cap immediately has it to their contract year.
Oh, understood. Okay. Well, anyway, he's 26. That further substantiates my argument. Let's move on to Devin Lloyd, and we're probably going to be in alignment on here. Mike, do you want to leave, or do you love Devin Lloyd?
I mean, I was the guy that said they needed to go after him last week. I've been saying it in writing since January. This was the guy they needed. Mm-hmm. This was the guy they felt like. I had heard whispers pretty early on that this was a guy who was a template for what they wanted in this system. They wanted to get faster. They wanted to create more turnovers. Guess what? You got a guy who ran a 4.66 40-yard dash at linebacker. Oh, and at inside linebacker, tied J.C. Horn, a Pro Bowl corner, in interceptions last season with 5. He is a guy that can line up against running backs and tight ends and really do a lot of things in coverage, and it's something that they've lacked. He's not shabby against the run either. Could be a better tackler, but can be dynamic and used in multiple phases. He is a 3-down linebacker. I know some people are going to look at the Jaguars turning down his 5th-year option, but I'd say he was pretty inconsistent his 2nd and 3rd year in the league. And the light just turned on here. There are people that are worried that now that he's switching back to a 3-4 defense that he's going to get swallowed up. I don't get that vibe. I think it's all about role and how you envision a guy. He's also a really terrific blitzer. More of a pressure guy than a get-home guy, but I think he's a guy that can impact the passing game. And we've talked about this for months, if not a year. The Panthers have done really well at attacking the margins of non-premium positions, and inside linebacker is not considered a premium position by most teams. Most teams consider quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, 3 technique, which is the pass rushing defensive tackle, edge, and cornerback to be the 6 premium positions. Inside linebacker is not part of that group. And I think what they did was, it's been reported 3 years, $45 million. That's a steal. I actually expected him to make around 17 or 18 APY. So at 15 million APY, if that's truly what the numbers are, I haven't been able to confirm that yet. That's a pretty good deal, especially for a guy that seemed to be the number one dude on the market. He fits within their age range. He fits within their intangible checklist. Long 33-inch arms, fast, good teammate. Has been an alpha middle linebacker on a playoff team as recently as last year. I love it. I mean, and also since one of the 6, the only one of the 6 that we called, I think like I win a prize from you, but we'll think of a punishment for you. Maybe you have to do a whole show in a Peter Pan costume.
Hold on. Why do I have to do? Why is it a punishment for me and not just a prize for you? We need to
because that's a prize for me.
No, we need to establish positive. Wait.
Oh wow,
Zach,
did you do that? We just got an applause. Look at that, Zach. What do you think of the Peter Pan? Zach, what do you think of the Peter Pan outfit? Should we do that for an entire podcast? Yeah.
He ain't going to say anything besides.
It's been written.
Okay.
Anyway,
right, that's
Alex,
fine.
what do you think of this great move that I totally called and just nailed? What do you got?
The thing that I'm most intrigued by with Devin Lloyd is his pass coverage ability and his ability to perhaps lock down opposing tight ends, opposing running backs, these guys who have caused just a whole bunch of havoc in the Panthers world in 2025. He tied the inside linebacker position with 5 interceptions last year, only allowed a 67.8 passer rating while he was in coverage, which is the 3rd lowest among all inside linebackers. He is, and that's according to Next Gen Stats, he's just like, that's the most interesting thing to me. The Panthers really haven't had a guy with those interception numbers since Luke Kuechly. They haven't really had a pass coverage guy like that in a long time. And I think he can do a great job with that. My my concern with him would be the fact that he needs to prove it consistently and not just do it on a contract year and not just do this when money's on the line. Because you're right, there's a reason why the Jacksonville Jaguars didn't pick up his 5th-year option, right? So that's what I would be concerned with. But just like you, I've learned a lot about him over the past couple weeks, and he was always going to be the guy. So I too technically love it. And also like 15 mil a year, like I don't think it's not a cheap deal, but I don't think that's an overpay at all. Like you said, I mean, it's essentially the same contract as Nick Bolton of the Chiefs and Jamin Sherwood of the New York Jets. So if he's going to be like them, Panthers are in much better spot than they were this past year. So I love it. I love the pickup of Devin Lloyd. Mike, do you want to real quick go through Kenny Pickett?
Yeah. Fellow New Jersey native. Also not a starting quarterback. Kenny's had a winding road in the NFL, to say the least. Former first-round pick out of Pittsburgh, played for the Steelers for a couple of years. That didn't work out. They traded him to Philly. He won a Super Bowl as a backup, playing sparingly. Then he got traded to Cleveland, where he was supposed to be in the joint practices that we covered, and then got traded to Las Vegas, where he spent the entire campaign as the backup to Geno Smith. When he did get his name called, didn't play particularly well either. This feels like a massive course correction based on Andy Dalton's performance against the Bills. That's what this feels like. Andy was immobile. He didn't get the ball out quickly, didn't show much athleticism left, couldn't really throw guys open. Pickett at least has some quality mobility. I wouldn't say he is particularly dynamic as a passer. I don't think he offers anything beyond the mobility that Dalton really doesn't. It's been reported as a 1-year, $4 million deal with $7.5 million upside. He's fine. He can lead an offense if called upon. I sent some text messages to some members of the Eagles staff who had worked with him. They both said he's a good teammate, good locker room guy, and will practice very hard. This is an opportunity for him to work with Dave Canales, and maybe he can get something out of him the way he did with Geno Smith. I don't think this is a similar situation. I think Kenny is what he is. I think he's a guy who can lead an offense. He can serve as a spot starter if necessary. I think if Bryce Young were to go down for any long stretch of time, you're not in great shape anyway, no matter who's the quarterback behind him. The one part where I'm kind of like, is you have guaranteed Andy Dalton $2 million. If you cut him, you save like $150,000. So it makes more sense to keep him as long as you can. There could be an injury in training camp or OTAs where you can trade him. Before June 1, if you trade him, you save $2.15 million. If you trade him after June 1, which would be probably what would happen if they don't trade him this week or during the draft, you can save $4 million. The whole situation feels weird to me. And if he's going to compete, he's going to compete. If you're going to hold him around, you're going to hold him around. But Pickett in a competition with Dalton, I don't think there is much of a gap. And outside of Kenny being 10 years younger and having more mobility. Arm-wise, Andy's got an exponentially better arm historically. So I'm interested to kind of see what happens. Maybe Andy's done and they really want to move forward with Kenny. I don't think adding Kenny, especially on that contract, precludes them from drafting a quarterback in the later rounds. If anything, I actually think it shows the merit of developing a cheap, young backup long-term on a rookie deal, a late-round rookie deal, that is. So I don't know. I mean, I could leave it. I mean, I know I brought up Zach Wilson, but I also thought Zach Wilson would cost like 1 year, $2 million. You know what I mean? Like I thought cheaper. Kenny's got a lot of experience. He's been in a Super Bowl winning locker room. I've heard he's a pretty good teammate and a good dude. Like that's the type of culture they're trying to build. But to me, I don't know that A, needed to be a day one agreement, B, needed to be him, and C, I mean, I guess in theory, it's a good message to send to Bryce Young because he is absolutely of no threat to Bryce Young. But I don't know that you're sending the right message to the fan base where it's like there isn't even really a guy who can contend with Bryce if he struggles. And so if you're somebody who's pro Bryce, you're like, okay, cool. They are cementing him as the guy. Like he doesn't have to worry about anything. But on another hand, if you're not pro Bryce and you're not a fan and you think they need to get better, if he bombs this year, he bombs this year. They are trying to set him up as the guy, and they can move on and have a fresh start at quarterback while they have all these great new pieces on defense where they've invested pieces on off. You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, if you're on either side of the aisle, you have a reason to kind of like this setup and not like this setup. But ultimately, it's a big whatever for me. I could leave it.
Yeah. You kind of hit on every single point known to man about Kenny Pickett, honestly, in that just in what you just said.
Sorry.
But contract stuff notwithstanding, because that is important to point out, I am cool with it. I like it because this is something that the Panthers set out to do, get younger at the backup quarterback spot. It's not like getting a Zach Wilson or another young quarterback would have moved the needle all that much differently. I don't think he like you said, has really good endorsements from the coaches that he's worked with, and that probably includes Pete Carroll, who obviously has really strong ties with Dave Canales. I am just going to trust that the Panthers have a plan and they know what they're doing with this. And also, by the way, if the Panthers are relying on their backup quarterback, they're not going to be very good in 2026
Sure.
anyway. So I'll just go with like it, and we can move on. Okay, let's speed through these next couple, or I guess these next four, because probably don't have too much to say about them. Caleb Evans, he was brought back on a 1-year deal. Mike, what you think?
I mean, some people are calling Monday the day that a Caleb built.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one insider say the Panthers had 3 big signings today: Jaelan Phillips, Devin Lloyd, and a Caleb Evans. And I said, "Woo! Somebody likes special teams."
My goodness.
I like it. I thought he would actually leave to get a better, like, long-term commitment, maybe where he could compete to play more corner. But I like it. He's been a pretty good gunner for them. And I think he'll be able to compete for like a deep depth spot. We know that he has playing experience. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't love it, but I like it a lot.
Yep, I like it too. Similarly with Robert Rochelle, I like it as well. Special teams guy, comes over from Dallas. Not a ton to say. I think he only played in 4 games, and every single snap he had was on special teams. But this was clearly a special teams hire. So shout out Tracy Smith.
I think that if they bring in anyone with any sort of guaranteed money, there's a very small shot Robert Rochelle makes the team. That said, he knows the defense. He knows the special teams. He's been here. I could leave it. I could like it. I'm kind of I'm in that, whatever range, adding a new category.
You're probably not in the whatever range of Thomas Incoom, though.
Oh, absolutely not. Ding, 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 ding. Love it. That guy, as you mentioned on Twitter, and as we mentioned our story on him, we wrote a story on a special teams ace re-signing. Because you go to the Charlotte Observer for all the information. We cover all 53 and 90.
Like you're the king of the headlines of like little known defender or
yeah, I love that.
Or defensive lineman plucked from obscurity like that.
Hey, you got to cover all 90, and then you got to cover all 53 and all 17, and you got to cover the entire coaching staff. That's what the sickos crave. Shout out to I think Zach just discovered he could do the audience clap thing, and now
he definitely did. Which
I appreciate. Thomas Incoom got voted by teammates as the special teams MVP of last season. He is a big favorite of Dave Canales, and is a guy that they promoted to be their special teams representative for the Pro Bowl and voting. Tracy Smith says he leads the nation and want to. And I think that that's exactly what they want culture-wise. I think Thomas Incoom, with another big special teams here, gets a long-term contract here. I know that they wanted to re-sign him. I know he wants to be here. He spends his off seasons in Charlotte because all he does is care about ball and getting better. Big fan of his. Love it.
Love it. I'll say like it because I don't have as strong of an opinion on this as you do. LeBron Ray, I also like it. And I like it because there's so many questions surrounding this defensive line this year. You might as well tie up this loose end. What like at one point last year,
he's a defensive end, not a loose end. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. You just left it there for me.
Jeez Louise. At some point last year, he played the most games under Ejiro Evero in Carolina. That's crazy.
I think he still has that record.
Wow. That's nuts. Yeah, I'm cool with him too. Anything to add about LeBron Ray?
I like it, especially if you are going to move on from Mayshawn Robinson, which you might have to do now that you've signed those 2 big defensive studs, along with some restructures. I would expect Eric Brown and J.C. Horn, by the way. But I think continuity and depth are really important, and I think there's something to be said about these 4 guys being re-signed as cogs, right? Like they need depth. Like something that Dan Morgan has been very specific about, at least in my conversations with him in Frisco, was it's not just about adding pass rushers. It's not just about adding upgrades. It's not just about adding linebackers. It's about having depth, because injuries happen, and the better your depth, the better your depth chart will be, if that makes sense. So LeBron Ray knows this defense like the back of his hand. So even if he's competing with a rookie that you bring in, awesome. We want to see Jared Harrison Hunt out there. He's a guy that they really like, but didn't play a snap last year. Cam Jackson's another guy we want to see out there. Turk Ward needs to step up. Bobby Brown needs to step up, but LeBron Ray will do the dirty work, so to speak. And I think that he deserved to be back for a fourth season, or at least a fourth off season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's everyone, right?
We got one more that we've already talked about, but we've
talked about a lot. Yeah. Him. You go.
All for one and one for all. America's long snapper, JJ Jansen. We're seeing all these long snappers get re-signed, and I think the Panthers got a bargain when you consider. I think that James Winchester from the Chiefs is making like $500,000 more than JJ, and JJ's just. They've got a podcast now. Like, they are milking that veteran benefit contract for all it's worth.
The JJ Jansen glow up, dude. Like,
it happened with the hair, man. I saw it, the transformation in real time. Before it was just a buzz cut. Now he's got like a coif, and he is probably using Crew or LA Looks. For those who don't remember LA Looks, it was the colorful gel that you would see in grocery stores, and it would make you look like you had dandruff because you'd get the flakes. Either that or you had flakes. Talk to a doctor. But no, JJ is a national treasure and a friend of the podcast. So we love that sign. I don't want to speak for you, Alex, but we love that sign.
No, you can speak for me. We love it. Anything else before we let these very kind listeners go? They got to get back to their own Twitter notifications and their own stuff as the Panthers figure out this final thing of free agency. Obviously, everyone, the new league year begins Wednesday at 4 p.m., and that's when all of these contracts become official, and they are officially Panthers. So stay tuned for that. Anything we need to talk about, Mike, before we get out of here?
On Thursday, I'll have my annual grading the first wave of free agency. It's a big analysis story that I do every year. We always get a ton of feedback about it. Check that out on charlotteobserver.com. But also, if Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis keep doing what they're doing, we might have a surprise pop-up podcast coming your way later this week. So look out for that. And Alex, send us home.
Appreciate you, Zach. Thanks as always. You better do the standing ovation when I'm done with this. Thanks as always for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike Kaye and myself and our wonderful producer Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap, Zach.